We made $280,302 sourcing at Goodwill Outlets only, and this is how we did it. Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Bethany and my husband Sean and I run Trash Pandas Thrift. We are a multi-six-figure reselling business that he and I run together, and last year in 2023 we made $280,000 and 302 sourcing at Goodwill Outlets. Let's talk about how we did it. So, let's break down our numbers. In total, we grossed in sales $280,302. The bulk of that came from wholesale. So, our reselling business at this point in time is a little different than other traditional reselling businesses. Traditionally, we sold on reselling marketplaces like eBay, Poshmark, Depop for years. Last year, in the middle of the year, about May or June, we switched from selling mostly on platforms like eBay and Depop to wholesaling. And by that, I mean we are thrifted wholesalers. So we are selling our finds at the Goodwill Outlet to other resellers who are then selling that online. So keeping that in mind, our 2023 numbers are going to look a little different than 2022, and we'll go into that a little bit more later. So wholesale made up of that 280,302, 139,641. This was done on PayPal mostly, and there should be like a little tiny icon that Sean's going to edit and put up there. The next contributor to that was eBay in $87,113. After that was Depop, $41,909, Poshmark, $7,794. So far, we're adding up to $276,457. Approximately $4,000 are between Mercari and Facebook Marketplace. We couldn't really find a screenshot for those two guys, but that's where the extra money is coming from that you can see on our tax return. So, I talked a little bit about this already, but in 2023, we transitioned to selling mostly wholesale in May/June. Before that, we were huge on eBay and Depop primarily. They were our top two platforms for years. In 2022, we did right above 240,000. It was $240,205, with a few thousand being from selling to buy-sell trade stores, but virtually all of it came from us selling on eBay and Depop, with eBay being the big dog and Depop really giving it a run for its money. We'll talk a little bit more about this later too, but we are big fans of both eBay, Depop, Poshmark, Depop. Oh, Depop twice, huh? Wholesale, Mercari, all of the reselling things. And all of it has tons of opportunity to make you a lot of profit, especially when sourcing from the Goodwill Outlet. Now, we sourced all of these amazing items from the one place I just mentioned, the Goodwill Outlet. What is it? So this magical place, if you have never heard of it, is a outlet store, exactly what you think it sounds like. It's run by Goodwill, although there are other outlets across the country run by other chain thrift stores, like Salvation Army has outlet stores as well. And basically, instead of in a regular thrift store where you have items on racks, you can go through and look through all the racks, see it piece by piece. That is not exactly the case here. So in a Goodwill Outlet, all of the clothes is on bins. And by bins, they're these giant blue boats. They are about, like 4 feet tall. They probably go up to about my hips, and I am 5'7", and they are filled with clothing. So they're filled with clothing that either didn't sell in Goodwill stores, they were outdated, and they sent them to the outlet to sell them cheaper, or sometimes certain Goodwill locations just get so much overload of inventory of donations that it will just go straight to the outlet. And what is amazing about these outlets is, number one, the sheer volume of absolute clothing that just gets rotated out onto the sales floor every hour at a lot of outlets. And number two, the prices. So a normal thrift store, you probably have a price per piece, maybe by category. At the Goodwill Outlet, they charge per pound mostly. There are a few outlets that I've heard of that charge per item, per tote, but most cases nationally, you're looking at a amount per pound when you purchase. It can be anywhere from as low as, we've personally sourced 99 cents a pound, upwards in some more higher cost of living areas where it could be as high as $3.49 a pound. But in most cases that I've seen, they're in between that like 150 to about 2 and change range per pound. And that's cheap. That's a really awesome sourcing opportunity, because with thrift store prices being so incredibly expensive, especially as inflation keeps going, it's hitting thrift stores too. These Goodwill outlets offer, number one, a great quantity of inventory to look through when you're sourcing, and number two, that incredible price. So some Goodwill outlets are also a little interesting, especially in states like California. They also offer pallets and bulk purchasing options. So if you're interested in that, you can always just search nearby you. If you've never heard of your Goodwill outlet, if you don't know where it is, go ahead and pop a Google search and put Goodwill Outlet near me, Goodwill Outlet pallet, Goodwill Outlet per pound, Goodwill Outlet price, and you'll get a bunch of information popping up. Each outlet's rules, each outlet's regulations, the way they do business, it's going to vary. So for place to place, it's going to be a little bit different. We personally used to live in Austin, Texas, which is the first Goodwill outlet that we sourced at and built the majority of our business on for eBay and Depop. So in our experience at the Austin, Texas outlet, they rotated their bins every, I'd say 2 to 3 times an hour on a really good, fast-paced day. And if you're staying all day, like we often would go to the Goodwill outlet, source all day, and see maybe 20 rotations, and that is so much clothing. A rotation is when all bins that were older, they've been out on the sales floor for a little while, they are pushed into the back, and then employees will bring out new bins, new blue bins of more clothing for you to look through. And this can be anywhere from like 10 to 15 bins per time in one rotation. The sheer volume I'm trying to get you to like understand is, it's pretty high. This is a pretty high pace, fast environment for sourcing, and it can be so lucrative. And that's why we talk so highly of it, because it is the crux of our business. It is how we've sourced virtually every single piece that we have sold to make that $280,000 in 2023. And it was exactly how we made $240,000 selling on platforms like eBay and Depop. And honestly, it is, in my opinion, all of our businesses are different, right? But we are such huge fans of Goodwill Outlet sourcing because you just cannot beat, number one, the low cost of good and the ability to just look through so much clothing all at once. It helps with your time spent and your money spent, which time and money are both money, right? Okay, so that's where we sourced it, all about the Goodwill Outlet. If you've never heard of it, there is so much more to go into in terms of Goodwill Outlet and how to do it and how do I shop there. But I wanted to give you a brief overview of what it was, our experience, so that we can be on the same page in case you've never heard of it, wherever your skill level or your knowledge level is at with that. So, how did we source over 100 pounds per day at our bins? We were high volume sellers, wholesalers to other resellers in 2023 and now, and in 2022 when we were fully selling on eBay, Depop, Poshmark, we were still high volume sellers, listing 50 items a day, I believe 55 at our peak, of great brands, vintage. We were top 10 on Depop consistently that year, all from items sold and sourced from the Goodwill Outlet. And how? Know your brands. That is probably my number one tip. And not just know your brands, know your styles. Know fast selling brands and fast selling styles in those brands. More knowledge is your biggest weapon. The more that you know in terms of what sells well for you, for your business, and what sells well in general, what is trending, what type of brands have a high sell-through rate on eBay, the better equipped you are for sourcing at a fast-paced environment like the Goodwill Outlet. So I think we've talked about this in a prior video, but a sell-through rate on eBay for a brand is when you type up a comp on eBay and you see how many items are active versus how many are sold on eBay. And when we're sourcing for immune to brand, immune to style, right? We're not really thinking about, okay, what's the style of this piece? And I'm just trying to think about what are some really high value brands that have a good sell-through rate, meaning they're going to sell quickly. That is exactly the type of eBay comp, the eBay search that I want to do in order to get more knowledge of what I should be looking for. I want to be looking for brands that are in demand, that people want to buy, and that are selling almost on pace with how much that are listed. Unless you source at a place like a Goodwill Outlet, it would be hard to compete with an oversaturated market of an oversaturated brand. If you paid $6, $7, $8 a piece, you don't have a lot of wiggle room once you list that item at $25 to go down if you get an offer of $20, because now your average profit of that item is slim. When you get these items for so much less at the Goodwill Outlet, you can form your own version of, I know these brands that sell really well. I know these brands that sell well for me and my business, because those two aren't always the same. And number 3, I know that these brands sell well for my business, even that they're a little oversaturated, but I can take a lower offer, or I can list slightly lower because I got it at the Goodwill Outlet. And a lot of times that is what worked really, really well for us. Our business was a mix of so many different items. And that is the key, honestly, when sourcing at a place like the Goodwill Outlet. If you can source the items and sell the items that other sellers either are not willing to sell or don't know how to sell, that is your biggest weapon. If you are finding brands and you know those brands that other people just don't know exist, you're picking up tags and you can recognize a valuable piece that other people might look past, that is the key to sourcing somewhere like the Goodwill Outlet. And beyond brand, we mentioned style a little bit, and that is because it is so super important as a reseller, in our opinion, in our experience, in our business, knowing your current styles, knowing your aesthetics, and knowing amazing keywords to sell the items that you're sourcing. When I'm sourcing, I am a walking keyword machine. I'm looking at a piece, I'm thinking immediately, how would I list this? What would my title be for this piece? Crochet, cottage core, a really cute Free People boho top. How could I sell this? How could I list this item? Even if it's a little bit oversaturated, how can I list this and have it sell for more than market if I know that it's a current season or a current style, a trending aesthetic? Or what I love and my passion, vintage. We absolutely love selling, especially women's vintage, using Depop heavy keywords, even if we weren't listing on Depop. Vintage was also some of our best selling items on eBay. We sold brands like Free People. We sold brands like Outlier, men's clothing, vintage, anything under the sun that we could sell for over $25-ish. I was taking it home if I felt like, yes, I can sell this. And you can do that too if you have your own constitution of what you're looking for. And that can be a combination of, before you're getting those instincts, before you have those instincts of, oh, I know current styles, I know current aesthetics, that's research. That's researching brands that have that high sell-through rate, researching styles that are performing really well for you in your business, researching styles that are on trend for this current spring, for this current summer. And the way to do that is super simple. One of my favorite ways is being in the know on all of my social media platforms. So on my Instagram, I like to open it. I like to see other Depop sellers that I follow, that I see like, oh, they get a lot of likes on their item. They get a lot of follows. They get a lot of purchases. What are they sourcing? What are they listing? Other eBay sellers, what are they listing? What are they selling? Fashion bloggers, what is currently in style? What are the fashion trends that I should be looking out for? The colors, the types of fabrics, crochet, etc. Anything that's in style that I know I should be keeping an eye on, I want to digest it in all areas when I open up my phone or my computer so that my brain is an overload of it. And when I get to the Goodwill Outlet, I'm looking at piece per piece and I can identify valuable items. Research and knowledge is the key, the absolute key to sourcing at the Goodwill Outlet and sourcing anywhere. especially. And I do have to say, the Goodwill Outlet's awesome for all of that. Like, there are some awesome brands, there are some awesome styles, there's vintage, and there's everything in between. You can sell anything sourcing at the Goodwill Outlet if you can sell it well for you. There are brands that sell well universally. There are styles that sell well universally. And those are the styles that we like to pick up, like boho. We love picking up fairy, 100% silk slip dresses. We love picking up vintage Be On the Lookout or bolo brands. And there's so much more than that too. The more that we know, the better that we sourced at the Goodwill Outlet. And over time, when I just increased our knowledge in every category that I felt like was valuable, learning more, doing comps on eBay in my local area. If you haven't seen it, we did on our Instagram. We posted a video of how to search in your area, in your local radius, what brands that are valuable, what brands are searching for more than $30. And that's such a great starting place. Knowing the brands that are common in your area because they're sold by other sellers that you can keep an eye out for, because it's likely that if other sellers are selling it on eBay, they're finding it in your area and you can find it too. Start with research, narrow it down from there with your personal experience, and that is the absolute key to sourcing at the Goodwill Outlet. I will say one more thing that I think that is super important too, is that the Goodwill Outlet gets a bad rap sometimes. And I know that you can search a video and see some pretty wild and crazy stuff. And I'm not going to say that it's super peaceful and that everyone's holding hands and no one's really like grabbing anything and trying to grab it at the same time as you. It might happen. Like, you might see some competition, some aggression that might be a little shocking or surprising at first. It's a fast-paced environment, but, and I will say but, in our experience, it has been the number one place for us to make friends. Other reselling friends, other friends in general. And oftentimes, so many people there are looking for different things than you, right? Like, we had so many different friends that just didn't sell vintage, for example, and would give us tons of vintage pieces. And not even as a trade, but just in exchange. Like, I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. And you want to see me succeed. And we'll give each other things that we know the other one really likes. The more you think about it as you are competing against yourself, especially in such a fast-paced competitive environment, the better you will do. When I'm sourcing, we can talk about this in another video too if you guys like it, for in terms of how I actually source. I wanted to give you guys a overview of how we did this. And honestly, I think the mindset going into it has to be, my competition is me. I want to outdo myself, outdo my knowledge, better myself, better my knowledge, do the best that I can do, dig up the best stuff that I can dig, no matter what else is going on around me. I don't care if two people are grabbing a shirt right next to me. I'm just digging. I'm just digging like a little fish digging in the sea. I'm just going along. I'm in my flow state. And that has been the number one reason why, no matter how fast-paced, no matter how competitive, even though sometimes maybe your location might get a little aggressive, even when going at one point in our business, we were going to the Goodwill Outlet 7 days a week. 7. I said 7. You heard me right. And I just looked at it, and honestly, you can ask me to this day, my love for the Goodwill Outlet has never shifted. It has never changed. It's never been diminished. Because if you treat it like your personal playground, like your world of opportunity, it can only bring you good things. It can only bear fruitful fruit. It might be a little corny, but that's truly how I feel. And that's what I think has helped us out so much. That's the number one reason why we did make $280,000, $302,000 in sales sourcing at the Goodwill Outlet last year, why we did slightly less than that in 2022 in an entirely different business model. It's all the same. It's getting better every single year, bettering my knowledge, bettering our knowledge of what sells for us, and you can do the same for you. All the while, the Goodwill Outlet is there. It's waiting for you, and it is the treasure trove that every reseller should at least try once. And if you don't like it, that's okay. The The first time I walked in, I walked right out. And over the years, I could never see myself walking in and walking out again. It could be a muscle that you have to just grow, or maybe you love it at first sight. Whatever it is, hopefully me talking about it today has at least thought about you provoking. Maybe I'll give it a chance. Maybe I'll give it one shot. Or if you source it already, I have been thinking of making a future video on tips and tricks for sourcing, practical tips that you can put into place to source better at the Goodwill Outlet from our experience. So let me know if you guys want to see that kind of content, and I'll love to put that together for you guys. I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you like content like this. Bye, guys.
Okay, before you get up.